watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today, a conversation with Michael Seaman, pastor of Trinity Life Church in Toronto, on Evangelical-Muslim Dialogue as part of our effort to spotlight World Interfaith Harmony Week. But first, some news headlines. Manitoba MP replaces O'Toole as interim Conservative leader. Canada celebrates 9th World Interfaith Harmony Week. Faisal Kazi joins Business Council of Canada as director. And US attack on ISIS kills 4 Syrian women and 6 children. And now the details. Manitoba MP Candice Bergen was voted as the Conservatives' interim leader after Erin O'Toole was ousted by a party ballot on Wednesday. Bergen was previously the deputy leader with the Conservatives, opposition House leader from 2016 to 2020, and Minister of State for Social Development during Stephen Harper's government. The Conservative Party told local media sources that she was among 9 potential candidates considered for interim leader. While the date for the leadership race has yet to be announced, Bergen will not be able to run due to her position as interim leader. The first 7 days of February are internationally recognized as World Harmony Interfaith Week, where people all over the globe celebrate different religious traditions. His Majesty King Abdullah II of Jordan first proposed World Interfaith Harmony Week to the United Nations General Assembly in 2010, following the Muslim interfaith letter to Christians known as the Common Word. Canada held its first World Interfaith Harmony Week in 2013. This year, events such as a spiritual dialogue circle and a musical interfaith meet and greet are being organised across Canada to promote religious pluralism and foster understanding. Faisal Kazi has been appointed to the Business Council of Canada's Board of Directors. Kazi is the president and CEO at Seaman, Canada. He also sits on the Board of Directors for the Toronto Board of Trade and the Canadian-German Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Kazi showed his gratitude by posting the news on his Twitter account. He said that he is committed to building a better future for Canadians. The Business Council is a non-profit, non-partisan organisation that provides analysis and policy recommendations on economic and social issues. An operation carried out by US military forces on Wednesday night killed 13 people, including 4 Syrian women and 6 children. The so-called leader of ISIS, Abu Ibrahim al-Hashimi al-Qurayshi, was killed in the operation. US President Joe Biden announced that all US forces had returned safely. He stated that the counter-terrorism operation in northwestern Syria was to protect the American people and make the world a safer place. Meanwhile, survivors of the operation claim that American soldiers threatened their families. A Syrian woman speaking on the condition of anonymity said that her husband was handcuffed while face down and soldiers took her, children, and tied her hands. That's it for the news. Surveys show that evangelicals amongst Christian groups have the lowest respect for Muslims and the highest support for anti-Muslim policies like Trump's anti-Muslim ban that he brought in when he was president of the US. But there are some in the evangelical community who are reaching out for dialogue with Muslims. Among them, our next guest, pastor of Trinity Life Church in Toronto, Michael Seaman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's really a pleasure to see you again. Now, I met you first, I think it was back in 2018. It's hard to believe it's been that long.
Oh.
I had met Pastor Bob, who is a very, very big figure amongst Evangelical-Muslim Dialogue people from Texas, and he put me in touch with you in Toronto for me to try to help initiate Evangelical-Muslim Dialogue in Toronto, and I believe you were delighted to have me reach out to you. Can you tell us about your experience so far with the Evangelical-Muslim Dialogue?
Yes, it's been an adventure. It's been just a big desire of mine to build bridges, and but it's also been difficult because ministers across all faiths have so many things on their plates. They're spinning so many plates, and what's difficult is it's easy as a minister to get focused on your own people, on your own congregation, not see the importance of building bridges. And so dialogue has been there. It's just been a little slower than I would like because there's so many things, including a pandemic over the past couple of years.
That's so true. The pandemic has really changed a lot of people's attempts to come together. Now, I mentioned at the top that we know from surveys that evangelicals are amongst the highest in supporting anti-Muslim policies. So how is it for you? You obviously have a different path that you're trying to chart out.
Definitely. That's an unfortunate statistic. It is as far as I can tell, a valid statistic. But there's pastors, church leaders, ministers like myself who do not fall into that statistic. And our goal is to reverse that trend and to start building bridges. And doing that here in Toronto has been it's been slow, but it's actually been really significant as well. And so it's just starting with building relationships between pastors and imams, and that's happening across the GTA now.
Well, I know that Pastor Bob, and I don't know if this is his brainchild or if he's just the person I know the most, but there's something called the Multi-Faith Neighbours Network. And I know that this word multi-faith has a very special meaning. We tend to think of the word interfaith. But could you explain what the word multi-faith means and why it's the preference?
Definitely. It is Pastor Bob with Imam Majid and also Rabbi Saperstein, who came together to form the Multi-Faith Neighbors Network. And a lot of work across religions has been done under the Interfaith banner. And multi-faith is distinct. It's different because interfaith, well, a few reasons, but one, interfaith is fueled a lot by tolerance, and tolerance isn't a bad thing, but tolerance can only get you so far. And what tolerance ends up doing is it puts aside our differences, whereas multi-faith sees not just beauty in our commonality, but also beauty in the distinction and what is different between us. And when tolerance is usurped by love, and love becomes the main impetus, which it is for multi-faith, that changes the conversation. It actually allows real, genuine relationships and friendships to be formed across religious barriers. Whereas once we may have appeared like enemies, now true friendship can actually happen.
I think a lot of Muslims would really resonate with what you've just said. There are people in the Muslim community who feel that interfaith is sort of like a watering down and an attempt to sort of like make me not Muslim. And so the multi-faith, in a weird way, emphasis on difference, but then you feel secure in your identity, and there's not an attempt to similarize you, make you all the same, and then you can engage in dialogue. I think a lot of Muslims would resonate with that as well.
Definitely, and a lot of Christians as well, because of the exact same reasons of the watering down. But we found when we can put our differences on the table and it's all out there for everyone to see and to talk about, and we can actually have conversation, because the Bible tells us to talk about our faith, to give a defense for the hope that is in us, but it says to do so with gentleness and respect. I find that a lot of times that gentleness and respect are cast to the wayside, and for the sake of tolerance. And then once we're in conversations, we forget that sometimes. But when love is the impetus for multi-faith, gentleness and respect follow.
That's the only way to do it, because difference, I mean, even in politics, right, like the left and the right, difference tends to lead to conflict. So that would be the only way to do it. I want to talk about the very specialized program that I know that Pastor Bob emphasizes, and it begins, I believe, with a 2-day retreat between a pastor and an imam, and then following other steps from that. Can you talk to us about these retreats and what follows?
Yes, we've done a retreat between pastors and imams here in Toronto, a multi-faith retreat, and it brings pastors and imams together who some of them had relationships before, but here in Toronto, for the most part, neither knew the other. So when we come together, there's a breaking down of barriers, a breaking down of misconceptions, of misperceptions of the other, and then a bringing together, because the reality is we have so much in common. Now there's some significant differences as well, but as I said, in multi-faith, those are laid out on the table. And when we can see the beauty of the commonality and the beauty of the differences, it breeds unity. And that's what happened out of this multi-faith retreat. I'm still friends with the imam I met at the multi-faith retreat. We've done some things together, because the rest of the program, as you have pointed out, is to do a social project together, before that, is to come together in each other's homes. And so we've had him and his wife over to our place. We've been over to their place with my wife and my daughters, and to just start building a relationship, and then to be in each other's spaces, and to do a social project together, and stand up for one another when religious persecution happens. Those are all tenets of this multi-faith neighbors network.
I remember that Pastor Bob was very particular that the first time the retreat, the socializing, the pastor and the imam ideally would come from worship spaces that were close to each other. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us why that would be?
Yeah, it's important to have geographical proximity, because it also represents our congregations and our people and our neighborhoods. It makes it easier to do projects in the city together, to stand up for one another, to access one another in relationship, to just encourage the friendship. And that's what we've tried to do across the GTA, actually. We've paired a pastor and an imam in Ajax all the way to Oakville and Mississauga and in between.
And is there a particular reason why it starts this program with a pastor and an imam spending 2 days together? It's sort of like a top-down, trickle-down approach or something?
It is. It is a modeling of sorts. And as you pointed out in the statistics, it's important to definitely get evangelical pastors involved, because statistically they're the worst. And so if we can start there and change their hearts and change their minds, hopefully it'll start to overflow out of their hearts through their mouths as they teach, as they lead their congregations. And there's a modeling that happens there where we can call our people to action, and they can see that it's safe, that that as we've been talking about love, the Bible says that perfect love casts out fear. And so if they can see that being modeled by the leaders, hopefully it does have an effect across the congregation.
Well, that's a beautiful sentiment. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but that's a beautiful sentiment to end on. Thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
You've been watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Share, like, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay safe and God bless.